Friends, I'm Rabbi Roger Klein, Associate Rabbi at the Temple Tifereth Israel, and we gather together this afternoon to celebrate the life and to honor the memory of Muriel Bedoll. Muriel's family so very much appreciates your presence here with them this afternoon, which offers them a great deal of comfort and support. Adonai ma'adam v'teda'ehu ben enosh v'chashvehu. O Lord, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath, our days are as a passing shadow. We come and we go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, in the evening it fades and it withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, "Return, O mortal creatures." Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away, our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. The author of the first of the Bible's 150 Psalms describes for us in language both poignant and succinct the nature of the good life and the fruits of that life. Happy are those who have not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor taken the path of sinners, nor joined the company of the insolent. Rather, the teaching of God is their delight, and they study that teaching day and night. They are like a tree planted beside streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, whose foliage never fades and whose fruit always flourishes. Let us join now together in the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai osei shamayim va'aretz. I lift mine eyes unto the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. Yea, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever. Kohelet, who is the author of the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, reminds us that for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Muriel Bedoll died this past Monday morning in her 100th year. Not only did she live an extremely long life, but the life that she lived was one of continual dedication and purpose. We mourn her passing, but we celebrate the years that she lived among us. Muriel was born in Providence, Rhode Island on October 24th, 1917. just 6 months after the United States entered World War I. She graduated from high school, and then she went on to receive her teacher's degree from the Rhode Island Teachers College. Thereupon, she entered the teaching profession and taught elementary school for several years. Along the way, mutual relatives in Rhode Island and Cleveland matched Muriel Feldman up with Jack Bedoll. And eventually, Muriel moved to Cleveland to marry Jack and to make a life together with him. When children came along, Muriel devoted her considerable energies to raising the children and to maintaining the family home. And indeed, Muriel responded to both of these responsibilities with devotion and with love. And during her children's school years, Muriel returned to the classroom as a substitute teacher while also going back to school to receive her certification as an Ohio teacher. And all along, she taught religious school at the Temple Tifereth Israel and at the community temple. As a mother, Muriel was single-mindedly dedicated. When I met with her sons last evening, they told me how caring and how conscientious she was. She was always there for us, they said. And in turn, Muriel deeply appreciated that all that her children did for her, all that they did to enrich her life throughout her days, but especially during her last years. Now, Muriel was the kind of person who assumed her responsibilities and who discharged them with unflagging seriousness and skill. Later in her life, she went to work for the IRS. Her reasons for doing so were multiple: so that she could remain active, so that she could help her son Jeff attend college at New York University, and so that she could cultivate new acquaintances and become part of yet another social group. She worked at the IRS for 20 years and made many friends there. In addition, her innate intelligence, her curiosity, her knowledge of tax matters, and her talent as a problem solver made her a valuable employee and an integral member of her IRS department team. In turn, fellow IRS employees looked to her for assistance in their own tasks, and they also came to confide in her about their own issues. Muriel Bedoll always sought ways to engage her mind and her energies. She served as president of Hadassah. She enjoyed volunteering. She read books to and with children. And she worked with Jack in planning their many trips. Throughout the years, she and Jack traveled extensively. In reality, they were world travelers, and they collaborated on the elaborate preparations that extensive travel entail. Moreover, Muriel was a great lover of opera, and as I was told last night, she traveled 3 times to Seattle to enjoy Richard Wagner's massive 15-plus hour ring cycle. And to the very end of her long life, Muriel, though by now bedridden, maintained her mental capacity and her sharp memory. She was, in the words of her son Jeff, sharp as a tack to the end. Muriel is survived by her children, Robert, Jeff, and Stuart, by her daughters-in-law, Susan and Christy, by her grandchildren, Jessica and Charles, Stephen, David, and Deborah, by her great-grandchildren, Shane and Dylan, and by her sister-in-law, Zelda. Muriel is also survived by many relatives on Jack's side of the family. And we are pleased and honored that so many of you are here with us today. Muriel was predeceased by her husband of 37 years, Jack, and by her brother, Edward. Edward, who, when as a child could not pronounce the word sister, called her and continued to call her throughout his life, Ditter. Muriel was also predeceased by her brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law, Lolly and Milt, Edith and Sidney, and Alan. Muriel Bedoll lived a long and a full life. She was caring and conscientious, intelligent and curious, warm and sympathetic, and involved. Those who loved and admired her will never forget her. Zichrona livracha. Her memory will always be our blessing. Amen. I now want to call on Muriel's three sons, who will reflect on her life, her qualities, and her accomplishments, Robert, Jeff, and Stuart, and then I will call upon two of her granddaughters.
Thank you, Rabbi. So I'm Robert. I'm oldest son of Muriel. And I'm going to say a few short words about my memories of my mom and a couple of stories, short stories, that highlight her. My memories of my mom are of someone who was warm, caring, supportive. For some reason, I don't remember her ever being angry, which is a good set of memories to not have. And I remember her being always very involved in our education, really encouraging us to excel and to live our lives as fully as we could and as productively as we could. And she was always there to support us. You really couldn't ask for more from a mom. She's the only person I know who entered the workforce or re-entered the workforce at a time when everybody else is retiring. When she was 62, which is the time most people retire, she joined the IRS and worked for the IRS on the telephone support line until she was in her late 70s, which I thought was pretty amazing. And so when I retired at 67, I thought, boy, I'm really cutting out of life early here. I'll tell you a couple of short stories that sort of highlight my mom's intelligence, acumen, and resolve. This is when she was age 89, and we, the brothers, wanted to do something for her 90th birthday. And we thought about doing a trip or something, but then we all hit on the idea of having a party for her, and many of you were at her 90th birthday party. So as we were planning this 90th birthday party, I said to Mom, we'd like to throw a party for you, and she thought that was wonderful. She wanted all her friends, including her friends from the IRS, to attend. And so I was in Seattle at the time. I said, well, Mom, where should we have this? What venue should we have? And she said, I don't know. Let me get back to you on that. 3 days later, she got back to me. She had visited about a dozen venues around the area. She had a list of all the hotels, what the rooms were, how many people they seated, when they were available, what the menus were, what her favorite menus were, and what the prices were going to be. So I just had to make one telephone call. She'd done all the work. Then we had, about a week before her actual party, she called me up and she said, "Bob, did you know there are no hot hors d'oeuvres at my party?" And I said, "Well, I know that, Mom. You have cold hors d'oeuvres and you have a 5-course meal coming up. I think there'll be plenty of food." She said, "Oh, okay." She knew enough not to argue with me. Instead, she took care of the problem. When we got into Cleveland, we went in and we checked in with the caterer at the hotel. And the lady there said, "Oh, did you know? Your mom called us and made sure we had hot hors d'oeuvres." She wasn't going to have that party for her without hot hors d'oeuvres. So she was engaged, she was on top of things, she knew what she wanted and she knew how to make things happen, and she passed those qualities, hopefully, on to us as her children. And for that, we're eternally grateful. We miss her, but she and her spirit live on in us and hopefully in our children as well. So thank you, and thank you all for attending. It means a lot to us. Thank you very much.
What I have to say is, basically, in spending time as a caregiver for my mom, and the reason that stands out is because it was a lifetime within a lifetime. It was actually having memories of being, of growing up, of learning, of being with her constantly, learning how to take care of her, learning about the medical issues I had to deal with, and I had a good support system through the medical people who I worked with and through the nursing staff, the nurses that were, I forget the word, but like doctors, and the nursing aides came out. And with that support system, I became a director when the nurses took over, and I became a doer when the house was empty of any help. And it was quite a struggle. It was hard. And through it all, it was also gratifying. And when the day was done, as far as all the routine work had been done, I had a feeling of sense of satisfaction, relief, a time for rest. But given her circumstances, there was always attending to her needs throughout the day and many times through the night. But it was something I knew I would always do. I saw what she did for me through school, supporting me through 5 years at the Institute of Art and 4.5 years going to school and living in New York. And the sense became stronger and stronger. I'm giving back whenever it happens, how it happens. When she had her fall about 3 years ago in April, she had a bone bruise, and it turned out to be damage to the spinal cord, and 2 days later she didn't have use of her legs. And that's when I knew it was time to go into care mode. Immediately signed up for courses to be a state-tested nursing aide, and I'd never tested out because no one was going to pay me. So still I had the knowledge. I was prepared. That was the key. And gained more knowledge and became more prepared. And with all that, became an entire lifetime in those 3 years with my mom. and something that you just can't live out or put behind you. It stays with you, and actually those are the most fond memories I've had, personally taking care of my mom and worrying and everything that role reversal entails. So now I was the caregiver, and she was the child, the person to be cared for, and the parallels to me became very remarkable. And I love my mom, and I miss my mom, but I know she's up in heaven with God. I know she's with the Lord, and that grounding gives me very, very every bit of confidence and comfort that a person could have. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you. Thank you all for being here, too. Thank you very much.
I don't like glasses. Thanks, y'all, for coming. I really do appreciate you coming out. My mom was a real cool lady, and I guess I was the youngest, and have a lot of memories going back where these guys were probably not around so much, but she actually gave us a lot of room to grow up and do things that Gordon and Anita can testify to. Probably she knew more about than we knew. But she was pretty nice to hang out with, and I really appreciate that. It's something that you just can't, it's just native to her nature. And I really love that. I really love her for that. And until the end, it pretty much was nice to come and visit her and hang out with her. And she lived a life of style and dignity and grace that I really appreciate. And you can tell from the pictures out there that, some I haven't seen in a while, that she was a pretty stylish looking woman. Something, you never get to know your parents really too much when they're young and out and having fun and doing things. And I know I didn't get to know my father that way because, he looked like he was having fun and out there and drinking and hanging out with my mom. And I just never knew him that way. It was kind of unfortunate, I guess. But anyway, I really appreciated visiting her even recently. I really want to say thanks to Jeff for taking care of her so well the past few years and giving her a life that probably she could not have had otherwise, living out the last few years that way. And it made visiting her much easier. I can come in and visit and hang out, and Jeff would take care of all literally the crap. And, that's, not everybody can do that. Even nurses don't do that. Even in the hospital, Jeff would take care of things that nurses wouldn't do. So that's it's pretty cool. And really thank you for that. It was an amazing feat to go through all that and do that kind of stuff. I don't even like taking care of my dog in that way. But no, I really appreciate that, Jeff. It did make it easy to come in and visit my mom and hang out and have a beer or something like that. And even a few weeks ago, I had a beer with her. So it's nice to have those last few moments. And she was lucid, as you could talk to her. She could talk back to you. She remembered things. I would go back and talk about old movies, learn about film noir, and go through, watch some old movies with her, and she would remember all that kind of stuff and who was in it, and it was pretty interesting to talk to her about that kind of stuff. And I, learned a lot of stuff about her in the meantime. So I spent a lot more time, hanging out with her and discussing her past, and even she didn't have a lot of rapport with her mother as much as we did, I guess, because she didn't remember a lot of things about her mother. So we started asking more questions and things and just trying to get a sense of, her background and her family and stuff like that. And a lot of things you take for granted. And so in a sense, we had spent some quality time with her that maybe we would not have done if she was up and normal and we were just doing things. So I really appreciate that time we had. And she went in as much grace and dignity, I think, as that we can hope for. So anyway, there were some things that I always remember about her. There's some words that she used to say, and I wrote them down because I don't have the memory that she does. But thought I'd repeat some of that stuff. So she would always say, "Way to go, kid." So I'll remember that. And "Oh, really?" And my favorite is "Whatever, Stu." And I think she coined the word "whatever," back in when she grew up. And "Oh, delightful." So those are things that, you just kind of will remember that only she would say. And I don't hear those kinds of terms too much, except for "whatever." I hear that from Jessica a lot. But yeah, I always remember growing up and all the parties I had and all the times she overlooked all that kind of stuff. So not too many mothers will do that and let your kids grow up. So I do appreciate that. But her legacy is there. Her legacy is, in me, Bob, and Jeff, and their kids, and my kids, and our grandkids, and that'll live on forever. And it'll keep going, and none of that could have happened without her. So that's really amazing when you think about it. So that's it. Thanks.
Two of Muriel's grandchildren, Deborah and Jessica.
So I'm Jessica, and I guess I will always just think of my grandma as a really strong, independent woman. Just a great role model. I'm not very good at this, sorry. And just I learned a lot from her, how she would travel around the world by herself, and she was just so strong and amazing, and just very with it to the end, and had the most amazing stories to share, and it was always so interesting to sit with her and talk about life and the world, and she's just been a great role model for me, and she will definitely live on, and I take a lot of her life into mine and just try to live it like she did.
Hi, I'm Deborah. My grandma was a delightful woman. She definitely loved that word, and it describes her and her life so well. She was someone that appreciated humor and strength in the finer things. I remember as a kid, I never liked gold and the color gold, and I thought that silver was just prettier and cleaner. And she told me that I would like gold when I was mature, and I would appreciate the richness and the depth and the beauty of it. And she has taught me so much about strength and how one can and should live their life. She taught me that family, how important family is, and that travel is one of the spice of life. She raised 3 great sons with humor and love, and I remember when I was badly injured at one point overseas, and she would call me, even overseas. She would call me every few days, and she was one of the few phone calls that I would look forward to, because instead of asking, how's it going, or what's new, which are really awful questions to ask somebody that's in a hospital, because there's nothing new and you feel awful, she would call me with like a list of 4 or 5 things to just talk about, and just talk to me so I could hear and feel her love even long distance. And she taught me so much through that and through being an independent and strong and intelligent woman about how to live my life. And for some reason, as a child, I found her too loud for me very often, too outspoken. She called me her fairy princess long after I grew out of my princess phase. And I resented that for a while. And now, as I am older, and I love the color gold, and all of these things that she showed me how to do and how to be, and I come to understand them, and being able to have the time to sit with her and talk to her and learn about her life and all the things that she's done, and how I can be a person, a queen like she was. I am so grateful to be part of her bloodline, to have that person as part of me, and that she existed and was able to share that experience and her boldness and her intelligence and wit and love with the world, because she made an indelible impression upon it and changed the world for the better. And I hope that I can be as close to a good and strong and outspoken person as she was. And I hope that she was, I know obviously if you're here, that she was able to touch your lives in a way as well, so that we can keep spreading that love with her. Thank you.
Friends, we all know that at a time like this, one of our resources to be able to honor our beloved deceased is the power of words. And that's what we have been engaged in for this during this service. And of course, words are appropriate and make an impact, and of course describe the person we're honoring. But beyond words is the fact that family members, children and grandchildren, stand up here and share at a time of grief the deep and indelible experiences which they have felt. Words have their power, words have their limits, but personal testimony, personal expression of deep emotion go deeper than words, don't they? Because they reflect the personal experiences that we have had and that have made all the difference in our lives. O God of life, amid the ceaseless tides of change which sweep away the generations, your love remains to comfort us and to give us hope. Around us are life and death, decay and renewal, the flowing rhythm that all things obey. Our life is a dance to a song that we cannot hear. Its melody courses through us for a little while, then it seems to cease. Whence the melody, and whither does it go? In darkness as in light, we turn to you, the source of life and the answer to all of life's mysteries. Will you please rise now for the Eomole Rachamim? Eomole Rachamim shochein bam romim, Hamtsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina. Im kadoshim utahorim kazohar harakim azhirim, et nishmat yakirenu shahacha laolama. Bala rachamim yastireha b'seter ganafav laolamim. V'yitzror bitzror achayim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Muriel Bedoll, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say together, Amen. Will you please be seated? I want to announce that our service will continue now at graveside at the Mayfield Cemetery. On behalf of Muriel's family, I once again want to express our deep appreciation for your presence here this afternoon with them, which offers a great deal of comfort and support.